Hello, hello. It is Tuesday, February 17th. This is the afternoon shift. I'm Adam Lorenz.
I'm Max Fuller.
And Max, we have a jam-packed show. There's a lot of stuff happening in the Twin Cities today.
Yeah, it was a very busy day when it comes to local politics.
Yep.
A lot going on, a lot of pressers. Georgia Fort, I believe, is getting the rain today.
That's right.
We saw, Don Lemon and others, and Nikema Levy also, last week it rained, and now it's Georgia Fort's day in court, so we'll be bringing a little bit of that. And I know it was a pretty emotional day here locally in terms of the Senate. For sure.
The Minnesota Legislature back in session today. They did a whole thing remembering the Hortmans, who of course were assassinated this summer. So lots of news happening here. Of course, we're remembering the late Jesse Jackson, who died earlier today as well. I guess to sprinkle in some positivity, there's a number of fun different holidays happening today. It's the Lunar New Year today.
Yeah.
Today is Fat Tuesday, however you celebrate that. So Mardi Gras, whatnot. And we're 1 month to St. Patrick's Day as well. It's the 17th.
I believe today is the day before or the day of the beginning of Ramadan or something like that as well. Yeah, I believe it's that as well. Yeah,
all within the same day
happening. Yeah, it's crazy. Pretty much like over half the world is celebrating,
right,
in some way, shape, or form today.
Right. I love that. So lots of news to get to here, and we're going to touch on some fun things as well. You mentioned Georgia Fort and Traherne Cruz. Their day in court today. You did something fun last night. You went to see Dave Chappelle.
I did. Got to see Dave Chappelle, legendary and iconic stand-up comedian. He had a special show in St. Paul at Grand Casino Arena to show solidarity with the people of Minneapolis. He announced it a couple weeks ago in the wake of everything that was happening. I believe he had a couple of more intimate shows at the Varsity that were a little bit less planned, more spur of the moment on Sunday. But then he packed out the Grand Casino Arena yesterday, so that was a ton of fun, man.
Yeah. And we're going to – I have so many questions, but we're going to get into all of that during that segment. Sports, there's a huge headline coming out of Minnesota today. Twins pitcher, opening day starter last year, Pablo Lopez, likely done for the season now?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Twins fans, we had hope for half a day. Half a day. And hope is out the window now.
Yeah.
So they're going to be a lot of emergency plans and levers being pulled if you're the Twins, and their starting rotation looks very funny in the light right now.
Yeah, and the season's very close away, so they're going to need to figure this one out quick.
First spring training game this weekend.
That's right. That's right. I read he threw all but 7 pitches during a bullpen session yesterday, Pablo Lopez, before he felt some soreness, and that was it on him. Yeah. So, we'll get into that. The Olympics, we'll talk. They're kind of winding down now.
Yeah, there's not as much happening per day. Anymore.
Yeah. The women's hockey team, the big headliner, they're going to play Canada in the gold medal match on Thursday, and the USA, they're going to find out here shortly who they're going to play tomorrow in a quarterfinal match. The USA not getting the 1 seed. That's Canada for the men. So maybe they're on a crash course too to meet in the championship as well.
Possibly, I would imagine. That would be. I mean, that's just theater that you can't draw up, you can't script up. It's USA versus Canada on both fronts. Let's go.
I know. So that'll be great. We're going to be bringing you live coverage of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. They're going to be meeting beginning at 4 o'clock. We talked about the legislative session opening and the Hortmans being honored. And then we're also going to remember Jesse Jackson at 4:40 to round out the Black History Month segment that we've been doing most days. Certainly last week that we were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually I pick a person, you pick a person. I think we're going to just share the load today because Jesse Jackson, he's a figure that transcends. I mean, we couldn't possibly just fit it into even a 10-minute segment, let alone I was splitting that segment up. So we figured let's just take the whole segment to honor one of the most iconic American civil rights activists that there ever was.
Yeah, and in the hospital for a very long time, I think since November or something like that. So it was very sad with him passing, and a number of people putting out their messages and whatnot. And we'll
There's probably a whole generation out there that is kind of unfamiliar with him.
100%.
Yeah, whereas like our generation, we grew up with him, and it was like pretty much anything that you could think of that involves civil rights, you just automatically assume Jesse Jackson was going to be there. To the point where it almost became like, a bit where it was just like if anything even remotely small happened, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton was both there side by side, ready to pull out a speech at on the drop of a hat and the drop of a dime. So but he obviously that that helped to feel that, to know that like we as a people knew like at least Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton got her back, you know. So it's like it's really sad.
My most iconic moment of him was at President Obama's speech on election night in Grant Park in Chicago, that was Jesse Jackson's home. That's where he passed away today. And there was that famous shot of him, and you could see the tear coming down his cheek. And so I'll never forget watching that live and seeing that shot happen live. Yeah,
and he helped pave the way for Obama, and
That's
obviously in a broad sense, but in some specific ways that I'll highlight later.
That's right. Let's get into some headlines for today. Speaking of social justice and activism, Bruce Springsteen, he put out that song about Minneapolis, and now today he announced his new tour, Land of Hopes and Dreams. It's going to be starting at the Target Center on March 31st. This is a big deal, and for Minneapolis to kick this off for Bruce Springsteen, I mean, he could have chose a lot of places. He's from New Jersey. He could have done somewhere there, New York, whatever. He chose here. So,
one of the most iconic of American artists of the last 50, 60, 70 years, however many years, maybe ever.
Yes.
And he's choosing to start his tour here after doing the pop-up show here with Tom Morello, right? And like I think it was the second
Friday
ice out kind of day of protest and solidarity, and he there was lots of rumors. He showed up, performed his song, and I think he was out there in the protest and joined the people. So obviously showing a lot of solidarity with Minnesota, and just a guy who's never been afraid, I should say, to speak up for what he believes in. So shout out to Bruce Springsteen, and it's going to be really. I was curious that he was at the Target Center. He seemed like a guy like that could probably be at US Bank Stadium.
100%. I had the same thought too.
I was wondering about that, and I'm sure there's some type. I mean, listen, he's probably paying people that know way more about the logistical stuff than me and you do. But it seems like, man, that guy. It seemed like it'd be pretty easy for him to pack out the US Bank Stadium. But I'm sure that's going to be a hot ticket to try to go see Bruce when he's in town. When did you say that was?
Absolutely, March 31st.
Okay, cool.
March 31st. That's
right
when
around the corner.
Right around the corner. The Land of Hopes and Dreams tour. It's an exclusively domestic U.S. tour, and it's starting off right here in Minnesota. Hopefully on March 31st we won't be seeing any snow, but a lot of Minnesota's going to be seeing some snow tonight, including the Twin Cities might see an inch tomorrow.
No,
it's coming back.
Done, but like I said, fake spring. That was the first fake spring, and now here comes the snow right back to ruin it for us.
So there will be a second fake spring,
There'll be a second fake spring. And sometimes that fake spring can graduate to being real spring, but most of the time it's a psych out. Sometimes it's even straight up fake spring, and then there is no second winter. It just goes straight to summer. Sometimes spring is like this long, and then it just goes straight to 80-degree weather. Right. So there's a little tumult there. Yeah, there's a little changeover.
Do you think like the real winter enthusiasts they kind of didn't like these last few days? They're kind of like, hey, well, I want the snow. It's February.
Yeah, it kind of feels like this winter. I mean, it was 1 month that we really had to
January
truly endure, but otherwise, besides that, it's a little bit of a ho-hum winter, especially after all those prognostications that it's going to be a brutal winter. It's going to be the worst one we've seen in years. All the snow and all that, and then it really just. It wasn't that cold. It wasn't that snowy. It's definitely not the winters that I remember growing up with as a kid.
That's right.
Yeah, they were intense. But these days, it's light work.
How did you celebrate the warm weather over the holiday weekend?
Oh man, I was outside, t-shirt. I mean, it was so nice to that moment is so freeing of when you put the big jacket down. You put the big furry fuzzy jacket down. You could take a little bit of a lighter jacket, even a windbreaker. Busting out the windbreaker last night to Chappelle. It was nice to just be outside, feel the sun. A lot of the times you're just like, when you're inside all the time, it's getting dark at 5 p.m., you're depressed. Maybe you think you're depressed, and then you go outside and you're like, I just needed to go outside. I just needed to see the sun. I just needed to feel the sun. So I was outside as much as possible, walking around, just enjoying the sights and the sounds of the city.
Yeah, I feel you with that. Just feeling the sun, it just like it hits your skin, and it just like kind of gets you in a much better mood.
Yeah, and there's just something about when everybody's out, because like that those first couple days, everybody's out. So even people that are even recluse, they're outside because it just draws you out those first couple days, especially. So it's just a different kind of energy in the air.
I feel that. It's a jam-packed show, like we said, and we're going to be bringing you bits and pieces of the arraignment hearings of Georgia Fort and Traherne Cruz coming up after this, and both of them spoke as well after those arraignments. So we'll see. This is all stemming back from the city's church protests that happened in St. Paul on Sunday, January 18th, and 9 people were arrested, and this was a big push for the FBI, and so we'll see what ends up happening to these people.
Yeah, I'm very curious to hear what Georgia and the others had to say. I know she's been very forthright on social media. I've got a chance to see some of the interviews that she's done nationally, just speaking on it. And she's been very poignant and powerful with her words. So I'm very curious to see how she was feeling in the immediate aftermath.
That's right. More on this arraignment hearing coming up right after this. Welcome back to the afternoon shift. I was just Googling the Sweden-Latvia game right now.
Yeah.
This is who the USA is going to be playing in the next round, but we'll get to that. Sweden's up 2-0. We'll start with Pablo Lopez. That's the big deal coming out of Twins spring training.
Yeah, Twins' #1 pitcher, their ace, Pablo Lopez, threw all of 7 pitches on the very first day of full team practice. Said he felt some soreness in the old elbow. They took him out of there, and then the news came out today. It was kind of grim, a grim feeling yesterday, but obviously there was still a lot of questions and uncertainty. And then today, Twins general manager Jeremy Zoll said that he tore a ligament in his throwing elbow. They're seeking a second opinion, but surgery is very much on the table. It looks like he's injured his UCL, which best case scenario is a months-long recovery. He wouldn't be anywhere near ready until close to the end of the season after the All-Star break. Probably, I mean, if the playoffs, if the Twins manage to somehow be in a playoff race, then he might be available then. But it's looking likely that if he gets this surgery, his season would be over before it even starts.
Yeah, it's usually never good when you're seeking the second opinion. The second opinion is never...
Second opinion is desperation.
Yeah,
it's
it's not the opinion.
Please tell us that there's some type of optimism. Yeah. But especially, I would imagine, the Twins, they got some really smart people in that front office, allegedly. And you would think that they know that this season's kind of a wash anyways. Why waste it? Why try to rush Pablo back? I would imagine that he's done for the season. But done for the season. So Twins without their number one pitcher for the entirety of the year.
Yeah, and it would require Tommy John surgery, which there's of course there's no guarantees coming back from Tommy John surgery. That's really like derailed a lot of pitchers' careers that have been very
almost undefeated.
It is.
There's way more anomaly cases of pitchers that have come back to even been a semblance of themselves post Tommy John surgery, let alone actually living up to who they were prior to the surgery.
That's right.
And I believe this is going to be Pablo's second.
Yes.
I believe he got another one when he was still young and in the Marlins, kind of farm system. I believe he had an injury as well. And obviously Twins fans will remember that he made just 14 starts last year because he missed most of last year with a shoulder strain. He had 3 separate stints on the injured list. He was 15-10 with a 4.08 ERA in 2024. So last couple of years, not really getting what we were sold when it comes to Pablo Lopez. His first 2 years that he came in, he was great. He lived up to the hype. He lived up to that big dollar amount. He was the Twins ace, and the Twins experienced highs that they haven't had in 2 decades. They were in the playoffs. They won, a playoff series, and then pretty much literally every single moment since they won that playoff series has been nothing but downhill and nothing but negativity. So no Pablo Lopez. They probably know that Pablo, they didn't obviously foresee him tearing his UCL or injuring his UCL on day 1 of practice, but I would imagine that they understood that he's, a guy that's had, his fair share of injuries throughout his career, hence the hot pursuit of Framber Valdez a couple of months ago, or just last month, I believe. He ends up going to the Tigers. He ends up going to the Tigers, I would assume, for more money. It's just, all right. No more shots at the front office.
Probably a better situation.
Probably just a better
too.
situation in general. Yeah, the Tigers are hot, and
they got a great pitching staff with Skubal and him, and you throw in they got Justin Verlander, but I'm blanking on the former Dodger. My brain's not thinking straight right now, but they've got a lot of they've got some dudes out there. They
got some guys that I would assume they're the better. They're probably right? They're probably the huge favorites to win the NL.
Yes, for sure.
Huge, but
for sure,
significally above Cleveland or Kansas City.
Yeah, and I think the Framber Valdez news is kind of salt in the wounds, especially with this news today, because it's like, we tried to get this guy, but then we struck out, and then arguably our number 1 starter is now out for the season. So I guess Joe Ryan, the ball's yours.
Yeah,
so
Joe Ryan basically is the de facto ace now, and now you have a rotation that looks really, flimsy and really funny in the light. You got Bailey Ober, who's had some highs in his career, but last year, speaking of highs, he had a super high home run rate, super low strikeout rate, which is an equation for a really bad year. I would say it's a career low for him. You got Zebby Matthews, great name. Not necessarily the greatest pitcher in the world. And then listen, these are all young guys that could blossom, that could flourish, but even a lot of these guys, and then you got David Festa. Let me tell y'all, it was not a festival watching David Festa last season, okay? But these are young guys, and hey, say they live up to their potential, even exceed their potential, you're still probably not going to get the output that you would have got from a healthy Pablo Lopez. So it's going to be tough. It was already an uphill battle with a healthy Pablo Lopez. So it's going to be a real uphill battle for the Twins this season.
Yes, yeah. We're tracking the Twins. Our friend Jim Rich, he's down there in Fort Myers at the spring training home. 9 Twins spring training games on Fox 9, and they start this weekend. Saturday or Sunday, I think is their first. So yes,
something like that. So spring training for the next month, basically.
Basically for the next month. It's right around the corner.
Opening day is right around the corner.
Yep, it'll kick off really right after the Olympics end. Like we were saying, the big headliner, USA Canada for the women's hockey gold medal match on Thursday. Big note here though. Yep. Canada's star player Marie-Philip Poulin. She did not play in that first game when the USA won 5-0. She scored both of Canada's goals at their semifinal win against Switzerland.
Okay.
Here's the thing though. USA, they've beaten Canada 7 straight times.
Wow.
Okay.
I did not realize that.
But this is the 7th time that they're meeting for the gold medal. In fact, as you've made the point.
Yeah.
The gold medal match in the Winter Olympics for women's hockey has only been USA versus Canada. It's never been any other combination. Canada leads that series 4-2. So something's got to give here. USA is hot versus Canada, but Canada has owned them in the gold medal match. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Marie-Philip will make this more of a game. I do expect this to be a tighter game than 5-0. Yeah, that's my guess.
I would too, especially when you got all the marbles on the line, when you got the gold medal on the line. And I know our Olympic ladies representing Team USA got a lot of pride. And, of course, Canada's got a lot of pride. These are heated rivals, like no pun for the TV show. These are heated rivals out here. That's got to make it hard for all commentators. Out there.
For sure.
Without
like so mainstream.
Heated rivalries, but but like your rivals bring out your best. Your arch nemesis brings out your best. So I would imagine that Canada's going to step it up and give our ladies a hell of a fight. But I'm expecting gold from Team USA for sure on the women's side.
Yeah, that'll be Thursday afternoon. Then USA men's hockey. It looks like Sweden is now up 3-0 over Latvia. I think Sweden is the 7 seed. The USA is the 2 seed. So they will likely, not confirmed, but they will likely play a quarterfinal match tomorrow against Sweden. Obviously, the USA with the advantage there because Sweden, that would be a back-to-back game for them. But this is just one. All the USA did need 3 more wins on the men's side to win the gold medal. So that's it right there.
And I would imagine they're going to have to meet back up with Canada as well, probably on the way. I know Team Sweden has got some NHL talent. Nobody more so than the United States, obviously. And they had to fight a little bit over the weekend.
Yeah, they did.
They had to make a couple little comebacks. I'm blanking on who did they play on Saturday.
On Saturday, they were down 2-1 at the end of the first period.
They were down 1-0 and then 2-1.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being something like 5-3 or something.
Yeah,
like that,
I forgot who they played. Maybe it was Germany, something like that. Yeah,
was it Denmark?
Denmark. That sounds right.
That
sounds right.
Yeah. So they had to fight a little bit more than we're used to, but I think the end result was something like 6-3.
That's right.
Score, but that was a little bit deceiving. But so far on both sides, teams goals are hard to come by on Team USA. The defense has just been staggering, and then you got 20-something NHLers. You got guys that are bona fide superstars for their team coming off the 4th line for Team USA. And unfortunately, I would imagine the reason that it has been 12 years since NHL players have played in the Olympics is because these owners are scared of injuries. They're scared of losing players. And then, Switzerland? Kevin Fiala, LA Kings superstar, former Minnesota Wild winger, gets injured. He's out. His season's done. His season is done. So it might be a grand opening, grand closing if the NHL owners have something to say about it. Because I would imagine the Kings owner is pretty peeved that he lost his superstar for the rest of the year because the Olympics is something that these owners, I would imagine, almost unanimously don't want to do.
100%. And I guess I see it kind of both ways. As a player, it's a huge honor to represent your country and all that. But as the owner of a team, it's like you're paying this guy to perform for you.
Yeah.
He's not these players. There might be some monetary incentives for, Team USA making the team, whatever. It's not like what the Kings are paying him though.
Right.
So yeah, it's a little bit of a weird slope there. And I would be probably very upset too if I was an owner and somebody got hurt like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially someone that's such a key piece to your whatever you got going on as Kevin Fiala is. So, that sucks for him, but Team USA is moving on and they're at least guaranteed a medal pretty much, right?
Yes.
Or at least a shot at a medal.
At least a shot at a medal.
Yes, I should say.
Correct. So there's that. And then my favorite story from the Olympics, bobsledder Alana Myers-Taylor, age 41. She became the oldest American woman to ever win a Winter Olympic gold medal.
Wow.
She won for the monobob, which I think is just bobsledding solo. 41 years old, the oldest American woman to win an Olympic gold for the Winter Games.
What's her name again?
Ilana Myers-Taylor. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yes. That is awesome, and that's just a testament. Hey, never give your dreams up, man.
Never give up your dreams.
Doesn't matter how old or young you are, never give your dreams up. I'm reading here that Team USA scored another silver medal, I should say, in the free ski big air. I don't believe the U.S. curling teams are possibly headed for some semifinal action on the men's and the women's side. There was some curling controversy.
I heard about
weekend.
this. Canada was calling out.
Canada was getting called out. Yeah, they were getting called out on the men's and the women's side multiple times for possibly double touching the old rock. Those Canadians, and apparently they're the best. They're the best curlers in the world, but might be some nefarious, duplicitous actions going on, dubious actions going on.
Yes, I'm all for some Olympics controversy.
Yeah,
it's a unification thing, and I get all that, but it's all right to have a little bit of pizzazz and fire and some controversy in there.
And I think we talked about it. There was an ice dancing controversy as
right.
well with the French judges. So that's always, and I don't know if you guys saw the guy that was skiing over the weekend that just completely crashed out. He was doing the slalom and he missed one and he literally stops.
Yeah.
Throws his sticks or whatever these things are called, and he just chucks them both, and he just stomps off, and the camera just kept panning back to him, and it's really, the visual was really funny because as he messed up, clearly one of the guy that the coaches for the team that was in front knew right away that they had won.
Yeah.
So they're embracing each other in the background, hugging. It's just a crazy visual. They're embracing each other in the background, hugging, and this guy is just getting ready to just launch his poles, launches them both, rips off his skis, and just basically just kind of waddles over to a corner on the hill and just completely plops down. And the camera just kept panning back to him, and he's just staring at the sky, like just so angry at himself. I don't know what the backstory behind that was, but that brother was really, really upset. Also looks like the U.S. men secured a silver in speed skating team pursuit, which I watched a little bit earlier this morning. And man, there's something about seeing how, whether it's choreography when it comes to dance or something like that, just how in sync a group of people really can be. Like the synchronization is absolutely nuts at that level for all of their bodies and minds to be moving at the same exact way, in the same exact way at the same exact time. It's hypnotizing. So shout out to those guys.
100%. We have an updated medal count. Let's bring that up there. So the USA, this is, again, dominating the silver medal, but has dropped down a notch. Now tied for third in regards to gold medals with Netherlands there. 21 overall medals. That's good for third most. But USA, I don't think anybody's catching Norway for the gold. I don't think it's going to happen.
No, they're absolutely just running away with it. Team USA is probably not going to secure 8 gold medals between now and the end of the Olympics, but we are the best at second place. We're the best.
Jumping in here, I also want to say, just in the past hour or so, Germany overcame Austria, so I had to live update it. But Germany and Austria keep going back to back. I'm not sure if it was this afternoon. I'm not sure it's actually correct, if we had updated it correctly, but since the time we updated it around 1 o'clock, we entered 4 bronze medals for Germany. So
wow. You know, the other thing I noticed from the sport, shout out to the Netherlands. They're like, we're not messing around with third place.
No.
We're either going to do gold or second.
Right,
But that's it. Like,
Going
only
big or
one
going
bronze.
home. Yeah.
Yes. I dig that. I dig that a lot.
Shout out to the Netherlands.
A little NFL football talk. The franchise tag. Will you explain what a franchise tag is for the
franchise tag is essentially
secures somebody?
Yeah, it's basically essentially an organization can put the franchise tag on somebody. It really only lasts for a year. They have to pay them a certain I think there's a floor or like a ceiling, kind of like a baseline level of what they have to pay them, which is not cheap. It's not necessarily them saving money, but it's them putting it on a guy so he's not an unrestricted free agent, so he can't just go out and negotiate with anybody, and it gives them a little bit more time to have one-on-one exclusive negotiating rights with a player. I think last year, this is something we used to see that was way more common when we were growing up, but I think last year, if I'm correct, there was only 2 teams that used the franchise tag during this window. But it is something that is strategic for a lot of teams. There's nobody really that the Vikings are anticipated to franchise tag as we know right now, but it is something that just allows teams to gives them a more of a negotiating window, whereas if you were an unrestricted free agent, they could still talk to the guy, but the guy would be able to talk to all 31 other teams as well, and they would have their crack at him. So it's usually a precursor for a longer deal, but it's a pretty costly move for a team, and I think you can only use it once per year.
Are the Vikings rushing to franchise tag J.J. McCarthy?
I do not think that's the case. They will be probably watching who other teams are franchise tagging, and the free agency window is just right around the corner as well.
I think the Vikings should bring in Mac Jones. That's my push. That's my advice. I don't know anything, but that's my advice.
That's what a lot of people in town are fans of. That the 49ers, they're posturing. They're saying, well, Mac Jones is not available. Mac Jones is available. Okay, Mac Jones.
He's a very good backup.
He's a very good backup.
He showed he was very capable. He beat the Rams on the road.
They basically were the same exact team.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
That's the true. There's no truer testament to how good your backup was. Your team basically doesn't lose a step at all. I know there's lots of steam around possibly a Kyler Murray maybe coming here. I know Tua. Tagovailoa is also a free agent. I don't think too many people in town are super interested in Tua. Kyler has been percolating on a lot of people's brains. I feel like he's split because obviously he doesn't necessarily have the best image in the league. He seems like a guy that's kind of been unfocused.
Yeah, pouty.
Pouty. And then there's all the rumors about he's not doing his studying. He's playing Call of Duty.
Video games.
And then someone literally did an in-depth study on his stats the day after or the same week that a new Call of Duty map comes out, and it literally and you know, correlation isn't causation, but it corroborates that he's unfocused because every time there's a new map, his stats significantly drop. I mean, that's pretty damning right there. But when you have a head coach that's known as a quarterback whisperer, anything is possible. So a lot of people thinking about Kyler Murray, but regardless, whether it's Mac Jones, whether it's Kyler Murray, whoever, they got to bring somebody in. So the Vikings are definitely, there's nobody on, from what I've been reading reports, there's nobody on the Vikings radar when it comes to franchise tagging, but they'll definitely be keeping their eyes on who gets franchise tagged around the league.
Yeah, I think Tua is interesting because if there's a scenario for him, I think a place where he doesn't have to play in cold weather and he's indoors. Like, I know you got to go to Lambeau and Soldier Field, but Detroit, like, that's also indoors. I don't know. He has that reputation for not being able to play in the cold weather.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But that would be exciting, I think, to bring Tua in the building.
I think it would be. It's an interesting prospect because when he's healthy, he's a guy that threw for 4,000 yards.
Yes.
Like he was a guy that had the Dolphins in the playoffs and relevant for really the first time in my conscious lifetime. They've been one of the most irrelevant franchises, not just in the NFL, and all of American team sports, if you ask me. Outside of them being in the city of Miami, which everybody loves, nobody would ever really talk about the Dolphins if it wasn't for their past glory and past popularity.
That's right.
But Tua kind of brought them back to the light. Now they're back in the shade again, but it could be an interesting prospect, but I don't think anybody, considering the context of the Vikings specifically and JJ's injury history, I don't think anybody's super interested in bringing a guy that's just even longer history of injuries that are more long-term and could be more long-lasting as well.
Yeah.
But the Kyler Murray thing, that interests me.
Yeah.
That does interest me. I think he's a guy that has shown flashes that when he is locked in, this is a guy that can play in this league, man. He's not a scrub.
Yeah. We'll see what the Vikings end up doing. We expect them to bring some quarterback into the building. Finally, the Gophers men's basketball team, they're taking on the Ducks of Oregon tonight. Are you rolling with the Goldie Gopher?
I would if the Ducks were ranked. The Gophers play a lot
That's right.
better,
They only beat ranked teams.
They only beat ranked teams. They only beat the best of the best. So
true.
They're 4-10 in the Big Ten. So not the best record. They're on a 2-game losing streak. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But their road record, their road woes have been pretty pitiful this season. I believe they only have one win on the road out of 8 games. One win on the road for your Minnesota Golden Gophers. But hey, against the 9-16 Oregon Ducks team, I would imagine that it's a gimme. Yeah,
March is just right around the corner. March Madness, it's all happening here really quick. I know we promised this Georgia Fort arraignment hearing and her statement afterwards. We were having some technical difficulties at first, but I think we do have it now. So we'll go to break and then we'll come back with Georgia Ford and Traherne Cruz and everything that went down at the St. Paul Federal Courthouse right after this. We were talking about it at the start of the show. Journalist Georgia Fort, Black Lives Matter Minnesota co-founder Traherne Cruz. They were both arraigned earlier today at a federal courthouse in St. Paul from this City's Church protest that went down last month.
Yeah, and we heard from Don Lemon and Nikema Levy-Armstrong last week following their arraignments, and now it's Georgia Fort's day in court.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear what they had to say once they left the courthouse.
Hello, hi. My name is Cynthia Lewis. I am a former board member for Center for Broadcast Journalism. I've also been a longtime collaborator, volunteer, have worked with Georgia for upwards of 20 years. And so I am here today to express my extreme disappointment and outrage that we are still here talking about these charges that are bogus. And so I say, along with everyone else, drop the charges, dismiss the charges, and a formal apology is definitely in order. Georgia is a dedicated daughter, wife, mother, and has carried out her duties to the extent that none of us would, I'm sure. I have witnessed Georgia start as a volunteer just with curiosity at becoming a journalist, all the way to going into another market to study her craft and go from community radio and media all the way to commercial, coming back here and commuting every day all the way up to Duluth, all while being a mother. Cameras, big cameras like this on her shoulder, 8 months pregnant, all while still being a mother. Questioning whether or not whatever her integrity is in terms of covering has been a shame, a pity and a shame. Let's just say that, right? I want to just convey the fact that Georgia has not only given to the community, but most importantly, has taken care of our babies. Georgia has trained our children and others with this professional industry and has made way for them to create money in their pocket as well as expanding their brains and giving them the opportunities to understand exactly what this industry beholds. I just want to say thank you, Georgia, for your continued perseverance. I think that all of us, time out for behind the scenes, we've got to come forward and support this independent media, independent black media specifically, which is so crucial to what is happening not only here in Minnesota but across the country. We've got another persecuted independent journalist, Ralph L. Crowder III, who said that anything that is taking place here in Minnesota is taking place anywhere USA, and I thank you. I thank all of you for your work. I thank you for the warnings that have come that said that we were going to be here on this day. We were going to be here if we were not careful, and here we are. And so with that, I want to make sure to point out that Brother Traherne Cruz, he made a point. Traherne made a point the other day about Dred Scott and his wife Harriet. We also put out a press release about a youth opportunity, a paid youth opportunity, and none of you picked that up. And that is why the Black independent press is so important, because the things that are important to us may not be important to you, but it is so critical that we understand what is happening on the ground and in and about this world. And so I just want to I want to pass the mic over. We're going to hear from, where you at, Harry? Harry, we're going to, Harry, the Vice President of Center for Broadcast Journalism. We're going to hear from Georgia's legal representation and then also Georgia herself. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Harry Colbert Jr. I'm the Vice President for the Center for Broadcast Journalism, a nonprofit news organization founded by this person right behind me, Georgia Fort. Woo! Woo! The Center for Broadcast Journalism and its radio station, Power 104.7 FM, trains young journalists ages 16 to 24 in the sciences and the arts of truth-telling. I share that as background of the organization to demonstrate Georgia's unwavering commitment to our youth, our community, and our cherished profession. As both a representative for the Center for Broadcast Journalism and as a past president of the National Association of Black Journalists, Minnesota, I stand firmly with Georgia and with the 8 other individuals charged in this protest. We can have a healthy debate about methods, but what we cannot debate, what will not be debated, are the rights of the 6 protesters and the 3 journalists charged in this case. All, I repeat, all are protected under the very First Amendment of our United States Constitution. And if it's that right that is not fully protected, then what I affirm to you is democracy in America as we know it is no more, full stop. Yes. As I speak to you at this very moment, and I'm speaking to the journalists in particular, you're here doing a job. You're following a story, and you're presenting that story to your various audiences. Georgia and the 2 other journalists that were there at City's Church were doing what you're doing right now at this very moment, following a story and sharing it with their various audiences. And as of this moment, and I underscore as of this moment, reporting is not a crime.
Yeah.
But if we allow this malicious prosecution of Georgia to move forward, then sadly, that statement will be no longer our truth in these United States of America. Right. Again, Georgia committed no crime. She did her job. And quite frankly, she did it damn well. Yeah. Georgia, I'm proud of you as a journalist. You are a credit to this profession. You are a credit to this community. And we all thank you for what you are doing. Not what you have done, but what you are doing, because the work don't stop.
We'll see you at work.
Listen!
Good afternoon. The attack on the press did not start or end with my arrest. Mario Rivera, an independent journalist covering ICE arrests in Atlanta, was held in jail for more than 100 days, then deported, despite the fact that his attorneys say he has a legal work visa to be here in America. Just a few weeks ago, all of our colleagues, Janice Shortle, an anchor with the NBC affiliate here in Minneapolis, was sprayed with chemical agents while covering the protest following the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. The attack on the press did not start with my arrest. 3 journalists were attacked by St. Paul police officers during an ICE arrest in November, and even on a city level right here in St. Paul, no one has been held accountable for violating their First Amendment rights. CNN reporter Omar was arrested live on television right here in Minnesota back in 2020. And you know what? It was in that moment, while he was live on television holding a microphone that had a CNN mic flag on it, that I knew. If they'll arrest him live on television on CNN, they will arrest me, an independent journalist. And this isn't just a U.S. problem. This is a global crisis. According to Al Jazeera, more than 250 journalists and members of the media have been killed in Gaza, and most people don't even know about it. We live in a time when AI images and AI videos are shaping our world's reality, with a portion of our society living in delusion. So if you stand for truth, I need you to stand up today. And not just for me, and not just for all journalists, but for anyone who is having their First Amendment violated. Lastly, I want the media to understand, as a journalist who is from Minnesota, this case doesn't just leave me fighting for my freedom. It is the government trying to muzzle me, to make me unable to report on one of the most historic cases, not just in our state, but in our country. Reporting where you all know that I would uniquely give voice to the people who are otherwise not being centered in coverage of this case.
Yes, yes.
And that's why I do what I do. Because I care about my community and I want to make sure our stories are told with integrity and care. And to make sure that no one's voice is erased. So as a journalist, I stand here today not only asking the world to help protect the press, but to continue fighting for me as long as this case takes. And I ask the press, each one of you here today, please make sure you get this story right.
Listen!
Not just for me, but for everyone who is impacted. Protect the press!
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 Protect the press! Listen! We want ICE out of our communities now. Yeah. We want justice for Keith Porter, Renee Good, and Alex Preddy. I want to send condolences to the family of Reverend Jesse Jackson, the civil rights leader who worked for jobs and freedom and black empowerment. Through his organization, he fought for black Americans to have jobs in corporate America. And our sister Georgia started her own organization because she couldn't get hired by our local media here in Minnesota. Somebody say that ain't right. That ain't right. In contrast, under the current administration in Washington, black unemployment is at its highest since October 2021. In Washington, D.C., black unemployment is at 10%. Somebody say that ain't right. That ain't right. Jesse Jackson fought for black jobs while President Trump is trying to stop companies like Nike from hiring black workers. Jesse Jackson worked for open housing, which led to the Fair Housing Act. Today, Trump is talking about white housing discrimination, which is false. Jesus was a carpenter, not an ICE agent.
That way. Hey, talk about it. That way.
Today starts the beginning of a major religious holiday. We call on all religious institutions to combat white nationalism and institutional racism within their organizations. Yes. I look forward to having a serious conversation with RFK Jr. and Donald Trump about medical injustice and economic justice initiatives for black Americans, so that we can make America great for all of us. Down, down with deportations. Down, down with deportations. Down, down with deportations.
That was Georgia Fort and Traherne Cruz shortly after they left the courthouse for their arraignment earlier today.
Yeah, both Georgia and Traherne not making the whole thing about themselves and what they necessarily had to go through as individuals, but putting in the broader context of attacks on the press, not just here in the United States, but globally as well.
Absolutely. There will be much more to come from this story. Interesting little note, the presiding judge today was Douglas Miko, who drew attention last month because he refused to approve certain criminal charges against Don Lemon. So this magistrate judge seems to be kind of in the mix, and we'll see how much that ends up factoring into this whole trial and everything that they're going to go, because everybody entered a not guilty plea. So we'll see what happens. Georgia Fort, not a name that I knew before the city's church project, but obviously a name that a lot of people who've been in this area for a long time have known. 3-time regional Emmy winner, a major voice. Yes,
yeah, very well connected in the Twin Cities and in Minnesota as a whole. And who sees it? Who knows if it even does go to trial? Remember, we had our guest that came on and said he cast some doubt, a legal expert that cast some doubt on if it does go to trial. But if it does, we'll be giving you all the details right here on the afternoon shift.
That's right. On the flip side of that. This leads perfectly into Dave Chappelle, which we'll talk about after this commercial break. Him coming to St. Paul. You went to the show last night to really stand in solidarity with the people here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you guys a lowdown on what happened at Grand Casino Arena with Dave Chappelle last night, right here on the afternoon shift. Don't move a muscle.
Chappelle was in St. Paul last night.
Absolutely legendary and iconic comedian, maybe the most iconic comedian in America today, Dave Chappelle, put on a show at Grand Casino Arena last night. He announced, I believe, a week or two ago that he was coming to Grand Casino Arena to stand in solidarity with the people of Minnesota in the face of, ICE's prolonged presence here. And Dave Chappelle has a lot of deep connections to the city, not only because of his reverence and former friendship with Prince, obviously iconic, Minneapolis and Minnesota artist, but he's been on record before saying that Minneapolis is one of his favorite cities. He really likes the people of Minneapolis, and you can tell with the jokes in his set that he actually does spend some time here and does have a lot of respect. And it was one thing that was a consistent thread, whether it was the two comedians that were his opener. He had the Clips as well, Grammy-nominated, iconic rap group, the Clips. Pusha T, some people might know him from his solo work and his beef with Drake. He's the one that ended up, Maury Starr revealing that Drake has a child in a rap beef with him. It was not public. Pusha T found that information out and released that to the public.
Wow.
So that was a thing. But him and his brother have a rap group. They're iconic, multi-platinum. They had a lot of collaborations with Pharrell. They were like his opener right before Dave Chappelle. And all the openers and Dave Chappelle just kept constantly expressing gratitude, love, respect, reverence for the people of Minneapolis, for the people of St. Paul, for the people of Minnesota, and everything that happened over the last 2 months or so. They showed so much love, and they just kept saying, the world is watching you. We all have so much respect for you. You guys fought. Like Dave Chappelle joked. He had a lot of jokes, topical jokes about ICE. I'm not going to ruin his set or anything like that. They don't let you have your phones at Dave Chappelle's set, so I wouldn't be able to. Nobody would be able to.
So what happened? How did they do that?
And this has been consistent. I've seen Dave Chappelle 3 times now.
Yeah.
And this has been consistent all throughout. I think he's kind of the guy that kind of pioneered this technology. They give you a pouch that has a locking mechanism almost similar to what you would see in an ink tag on a piece of clothing that's in a store. Okay. They lock it up. They give you the pouch because obviously it'd be a logistical nightmare to try to give every individual back their phone. So you have the phone. You have it on a pouch. You've turned it off beforehand so it's not ringing and you can't, so it's not going off, or nobody would secretly try to find a way to film through there. And then on your way out, they just have someone that just unhooks it, and then you throw the pouch into a box and return the pouch. So everybody says it's a phones-free event. It's kind of like reminds you of being in the movie theater. You lose track of time. I got out of there. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 10:30. You kind of lose track of time and just zone out, and you're very much in the moment. So it was cool. We got to see a little comedy. Then you got to see a musical performance by the Clips. And then Dave Chappelle went out there. May or may not have possibly been a Netflix special. The Netflix did flash at the beginning of it, and it said, live from St. Paul. And he was kind of playing to the camera in a way that you think it might have been something that was filmed or might be used for something afterwards, but that remains to be seen. But just in general, man, he just kept expressing so much love and respect for the people of Minneapolis. And again, joking about ICE, he said the reason that ICE is leaving Minnesota is because it's getting warm out. And he was saying they saw all these people come out here when it was below 0 temperatures. They saw it's getting warm out. They're like, let's get the heck up out of here. Lots of jokes about him, lots of jokes about Donald Trump. But obviously, he's Dave Chappelle. He wades into some controversial waters. He's gotten in trouble for certain kinds of jokes over the past couple of years. If you know, he kind of ventured into that territory a little bit, but more so he kind of stayed on his best behavior and just made it more so about the people of Minnesota, kind of about current events. It was a mix of new stuff that you haven't heard yet, and maybe not necessarily old stuff, but if you're familiar with Dave Chappelle, you might have heard a bit or two that mixed in there from the past. He had a couple of really funny bits about just kind of watching Indiana Jones with new eyes, talking about how he tried to get Will Smith and Chris Rock to reconcile, and the immediate aftermath of the Oscar slap. So we had some more lighthearted topics in the mix with a lot of real world current events, and overall it just felt like something special. It felt like the Dave Chappelle of old, because this is a guy I grew up. Man, we had bootlegs of his stand-up, not like a DVD, not just a DVD of his stand-up, a bootleg of his stand-up. Like, he was my hero. I watched Chappelle's show every single episode a million times over, and then obviously he disappeared from the limelight for a long time. And he just would pop up occasionally here or there, and that's how you know he loves Minneapolis, because Minneapolis was one of those cities that he would just randomly pop in, do a show, disappear again, and then he kind of had this deal with Netflix, and now he's been, a consistent figure back on the stage and on the screen as well. So and in general, it felt like the Dave Chappelle of old, where he's not Because in the years past, the last couple of years, I felt a little disappointed in some of his output. It felt like he was punching down. You know, it felt a little unnecessarily. It felt like he started to get into the troll category.
Yeah.
And maybe, because of all the current events that are happening right now and the polarization of everything that's happening right now, maybe he felt a little bit more pressure to go, oh God, I gotta go back to my voice has power. I gotta go back to speaking out against power. So it felt like more so like he was punching up again rather than punching down. And just you could tell everybody in that arena. Which, by the way, man, you couldn't even hear him talk when he first came out. Everybody was raucous, so excited. There was just a different kind of energy in the air, and it felt very cathartic for the entire audience. I don't want to speak for all 19,000 people, however many people were at Grand Casino Arena, but it feels like everybody needed a laugh more than ever. More than usual, and it was just people were gut laughing the whole side. I was giggling throughout, cracking up throughout. Man, it just felt like a really special night. Sometimes you go to see a legend like that, and you go, that didn't really quite live up to the hype of it. That Dave Chappelle lived up to the hype last night. He lived up to the moment, and he actually announced the very last thing he said on stage. He said, "This one's on me. All proceeds made here are staying in the community."
Oh, cool. Okay.
So it sounds
all right.
like he gave back to Minnesota in the only way he knows how, in the sense of laughing, but he also is giving back a financial contribution. And it was just it was a perfect way to kind of end the set. He started the set by saying, I wish I could have been here sooner, but you guys didn't really need me. It seems like, and then ends the set saying, "Let me give this back to you guys," and brought up Prince in his set and whatnot. So there was no territory that he wasn't willing to venture in, and the night was better for it.
Yeah, I read a review saying he played that Prince clip from the Oprah Winfrey show of him saying that he likes Minneapolis because the cold weather, because he keeps all the bad people out.
Yeah, and then he comes up, and that was kind of the way the setup was. It was almost wrestling or boxing like, if you've seen a boxer make their entrance, when there's kind of those long, winding, kind of rows that make their entrance. And then he came up, and then when the spotlight hit him, he's got a Purple Rain shirt on, and then he talked about Prince later in his set too. Went for probably, again, I don't have my phone. I have no concept of time, so I would say he went for over an hour, probably, and it was just joke after joke after joke after joke, and it was, again, just wide ranging from dark, serious stuff to topical stuff to kind of more evergreen, goofy stuff. He started off joking, cracking jokes on the Mona Lisa. He was saying, "I couldn't be here sooner because I was in Paris," and he's making jokes at the Mona Lisa's expense, and then he again, Trump and ICE and other celebrities, Epstein files. There was no topic he wasn't willing to touch. But it felt like overall he just wanted to center it around the people of Minnesota.
That's awesome. And cool that he played for over an hour. I've never been to a comedy show before.
Really?
Nope. No capacity.
Oh, man. It's a lot of fun. It's the same. I always say, when I go see comedy movies, or anything comedic, it's so much better to enjoy it with others. When other people are laughing with you, and then you can and then it becomes its own game where you see some people that you're sitting next to, you're like, you laughing a little too hard at that one. Why are you laughing so hard at that one? Or you're around somebody that their laugh becomes a joke in and of itself.
Right.
They're laughing so hard that you're laughing at their laugh, and it just becomes infectious. The comedy is just best enjoyed with other people. I've seen stand-up comedy 4 times. 3 of them now have been Dave Chappelle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And he's the guy to go see if you want to go see it.
For
so,
sure. Yeah. It's a very high bar, and he keeps exceeding it. Last night, it was definitely a moment where you go, old man still got his fastball.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, like you said, it kind of felt like a unifying moment of just you felt like you were kind of part of something that was a little bit bigger than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's an icon, not just in comedy, but in American entertainment and world entertainment. One of the most influential entertainers of all time. Not just being there specifically for us. He wasn't on tour. He came here specifically
one show, yes,
for us. Comedy that was tailored to us, and him just kind of going up there and just feeling so comfortable and meeting the moment. It was a really special night, and I hope that it was. I don't want to be greedy and just keep it for myself and then all the other 19,000 people that were there. So I hope it was a Netflix special, so everybody can see it and enjoy it.
No doubt. It sounds awesome, and every review was really good from that I read, and I mean, no review was better than yours. You were absolutely there last night.
Yeah.
And
man.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a really special night. So shout out to Dave Chappelle, and again, for a good cause. All the proceeds staying right here in Minnesota, according to Dave Chappelle.
For sure. That's awesome. That's awesome. Speaking of that, Dave Chappelle touching on a lot of current events. Current events were definitely brought up during the Minnesota Legislature. They were back in session today for the first time, among other things, ICE and I'm blanking on it right now. The fraud scandal and of course Melissa Hortman and her assassination last summer. All of those topics were
Senator John Hoffman as well.
Yes. Hoffman getting shot. All of those were touched on, and Hoffman actually spoke and addressed the entire legislature today.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was really emotional. I believe he was greeted to a standing ovation, and I can't even imagine the emotional weight of that moment after everything he's been through over the last year.
Yeah, we'll have that speech coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. Minnesota lawmakers, they were back in the Capitol today for a legislative session that was dominated by a lot of news that Colin and I'll come back to for this reunion of sorts.
Yeah, a very emotional legislative session. Senator John Hoffman returning to the Senate chamber for the first time in, I think 8 months since he was shot multiple times. His wife was shot multiple times as well. And then obviously, remembering, Melissa Hortman as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned Senator John Hoffman shot 9 times. He survived that assassination attempt. He returned back to the Capitol building and he spoke today. Let's play what he had to say.
Members, staff, and guests, I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak today. Man, it is really good to be back in this chamber with all of you. Over the past few months, my family and I have walked through a chapter that changes a person. When you survive an attempted assassination, you look at the world differently. The noise fades and that posturing fades. The chatter becomes irrelevant. What remains is what is truly important: family, community, and the responsibility that we have to care for one another. Today, my wife is here. My mom is here. My family and my extended family are here with us today. But before I say anything else, I just need to say this. Yvette, no political spouse signs up for this. She did not choose public office. She chose partnership. And yet she has carried this burden with strength, dignity, and grace beyond what I can adequately describe. That night, Yvette was shot 8 times. Our daughter, Hope, a gun pointed to her head. I sustained 9 bullet wounds. Those are facts, but they are not what defines us. What defines us is courage. Our daughter, Hope, while Yvette and I lay wounded on the ground, on the floor, she called 911, and she spoke calmly. She provided clear, critical information. Mr. President, there's no doubt in my mind that her composure that evening saved lives, including mine, and protected many people in this chamber. Hope, your strength humbles me. My family carried us when we could not carry ourselves. And with that, I return grounded in gratitude, Mr. President. I'm grateful for the neighbors, faith leaders, advocates, and constituents who surrounded my family and reminded us that we are not alone. I'm grateful for colleagues from all corners of our state who reached out, not as politicians, but as people. Members from both caucuses checked in. They called, they texted, they sent notes. They offered help. And they respected our family's need for privacy when we healed, Mr. President. In those moments, titles and party labels faded. What remained was simple human decency. Majority Leader Murphy, thank you for your steady leadership and your compassion during this time. Minority Leader Johnson, you and your caucus sent flowers in rehab. You sent food and checked in on my family. Those gestures were not political. They were human, and they mattered. I'm grateful for the EMTs who arrived without hesitation, for the officers of the Champlin Police Department and the Maple Grove Police Department who responded with professionalism and courage, for the nurses, doctors, and medical teams at Mercy Hospital who saved our lives and my life, and for the Minnesota State Troopers who protected my family and me in the emergency room, in the ICU, throughout recovery, and at our home. And they escorted me up the steps and back into this chamber today. They were there in the ICU as I learned to walk again and established a goal to walk up those Capitol steps with them. They kept watch during our most vulnerable hours. They ensured safety when uncertainty, real uncertainty, surrounded us. I am grateful to them forever. Because of all of them, I'm able to return to this chamber today. Because what happened that day to my family and to the Hortman family and the fear so many felt across our communities was absolutely horrific. I will not allow that to define us, our lives, or our democracy. What defines us is how we must respond and how we choose to respond. Do we respond and retreat into suspicion or bitterness, into conspiracy or partisan bickering? The answer is no. We have a choice to either commit ourselves to the work of the people, and I choose to recommit. In moments like this, politics must fade and humanity must take over. This is not a weakness, it is a strength. It is a proof that beneath our disagreements, behind our election certificates, we still recognize one another as human beings entrusted with serious responsibility. And that responsibility is to lead our neighbors and communities with diligence, respect, and humility. It requires restraint and listening, even when it's uncomfortable, but especially when it's uncomfortable. The people of Minnesota are not asking us to be harsher. They're asking us to be steady. They're not asking us to win debates. They're asking us to solve problems. They are not asking us to make the best speeches or get the most clicks. They are asking us to lead. So, Mr. President, as we move forward this session, my commitment is really simple: to work in good faith, to protect the most vulnerable among us, to pursue truth and fairness, and to remember every single day we serve here, this work is not about us. It's about the people of Minnesota. I return changed, Mr. President, but not deterred. More convinced than ever that the leadership is measured not by how we respond when everything is going right, but how we respond in our hardest hours. Members, let's rise above the noise, and let us govern with humility. And let us prove through our actions, not just words, that democracy is stronger than fear. Mr. President, I thank you, and it feels really good to be back here.
Powerful words there from DFL Senator John Hortman, shot 9 times, and finally back in the Capitol building.
Yeah, talk about resiliency, and he literally was talking about resiliency there, and just the need to, and in the face of the political violence that he and his family had to deal with, for him to be talking about, you know, reaching across the aisle and unity and everybody working together, I think that evokes a really strong emotion, even more so than just any old politician saying, this is a guy that's been on the other end of political violence. You know, got shot as many times as 50 Cent did. You know, like that's like, this is a politician. This is a regular guy, and he's talking and the ability to bounce back mentally and physically, and to continue doing his job, and to implore others to, hey, let's work together. The people of Minnesota are expecting us to work together and solve their problems. Man, that's powerful stuff.
Absolutely. There was more powerful stuff that came out of this legislative session. Members of both the Senate and the House, Governor Walz, all honoring the late Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, who unfortunately did not survive that assassination attempt this past summer. And we're going to go to commercial. When we come back, we're going to have that memorial service that took place inside the Capitol building.
Yeah, it was a very emotional day at the Capitol building, and we'll bring it to all of you out there in the audience right here on the afternoon shift in just a sec.
just heard from Senator John Hoffman, and now we're going to hear from his fellow senators, his fellow Congress people, all talking about the late DFL House Leader Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, who were assassinated last summer.
Yeah, this is the first session since all of that took place, that tragedy took place, and so a very emotional day.
Absolutely. Let's roll in what we saw today in the Capitol building, and including a speech there by Governor Tim Walz.
And Governor, Secretary of State, State Auditor, tribal leaders, senators, and the Hortman family, friends, and special guests as we take some time to remember the lives of Melissa, Mark, and Gilbert. If you are at a desk in the chamber with an iris bouquet, that is a desk in which Melissa sat during her time in the legislature. The bouquet of flowers in the gallery commemorates the seat where Mark Hortman sat when Melissa was first elected Speaker in 2019. All desks and seats in the chamber have a rose. We will be placing those roses at Speaker Emerita Hortman's desk as we leave the chamber today. We will now read a joint House and Senate resolution in recognition of Melissa, Mark, and Gilbert, beginning with Representative Long.
A joint resolution honoring the lives and service of Melissa and Mark Hortman. Whereas Melissa Hortman served for 20 years in the Minnesota House of Representatives and was the longest-serving female speaker in Minnesota history, and
whereas Mark Hortman was a devoted and loving husband and father, outgoing and genuine, a highly skilled professional, a man of many interests and hobbies, and a fierce supporter of Melissa's work, and
whereas Gilbert Hortman had an infectious energy and love of people that led him to change his career path from aspiring service animal to beloved Hortman family dog. And Melissa's greatest love outside of her family was reserved for Gilbert. And
whereas Melissa started her legal career at Legal Aid, suing discriminatory landlords, she won a record-setting verdict in a housing discrimination lawsuit.
Whereas Mark worked for a decade for John's Auto Parts, the Holupsik family business, had a fruitful career in the tech industry, most recently working for nVent, and
whereas Melissa and Mark met while volunteering as mentors and were assigned to the same student. They were engaged 3 months later, and later had 2 children, Colin and Sophie. And
whereas Melissa was central to dozens of historic legislative accomplishments, including a trailblazing solar energy standard and community solar laws, paid family medical leave, universal school meals, gun violence prevention, reproductive freedom, and much more. And
whereas Melissa strengthened government-to-government relationship with Minnesota's 11 sovereign tribal nations, including establishing Sovereignty Day in 2019 and championing tribal state relations trainings. And
whereas outside of work, Melissa enjoyed cross-country skiing and gardening. Frequently bring cakes for her.
Whereas Mark and Melissa loved to travel around the country and around the world with their family, creating lifelong memories and appreciation for nature, different communities, and the beauty of the world around them. And
whereas the Hortman family volunteered with Helping Paws, an organization that trains service animals, and Mark and Sophie successfully trained Minnie, who is now paired with a veteran. And
whereas Melissa believed in following the golden rule and the principle that to whom much is given, much is expected, she carried the prayer of St. Francis in her wallet and consistent credit in recognition to others, and
whereas Colin and Sophie Hortman shared how to honor their parents, plant a tree, visit a local park, and make use of their amenities, especially a bike trail, pet a dog, a golden retriever is ideal, but any will do. Tell your loved ones a cheesy dad joke and laugh about it. Bake something, bread for Mark or a cake for Melissa, and share it with someone. Try a new hobby and enjoy learning something. Stand up for what you believe in, especially if that thing is justice and peace. And
whereas Colin and Sophia also shared that the best way to honor our parents' memory is to do something, whether big or small, to make our community just a little better for someone else. And
whereas Melissa and Mark and Gilbert were tragically taken from their family, friends, colleagues, and the entire state of Minnesota. Now, therefore,
be it resolved by the House of Representatives and the Senate of the state of Minnesota that they honor and remember the incredible lives, legacies, and service of Melissa, Mark, and Gilbert Hortman. And be it further resolved that enrolled copies of this resolution be presented to Colin and Sophie Hortman.
We will now hear remarks from Governor Walz, Senate Majority Leader Aaron Murphy, Speaker Dameth, and myself. We will begin with Governor Walz.
I knew to not go there. To members of the House and Senate, both present and past, to Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, our constitutional officers, to our sovereign tribal leaders, thank you all for being here today on a moment that I think many of us thought about, wondered how this would feel. And as I came out of my office today, and having been here over the last 8 months, it's been quiet, but to hear this building wake up to the People's House when all of you are back, and to be here for Mark and Melissa, to the Hortman family, to Harry and Linda, Colin, Sophie, and the entire family. Hard to come up with the words, but as I think 8 months of this tragedy and watching you have to endure not just the loss, but the very public grieving, the grace and dignity and decency that you've conducted yourself is a lesson for all of us. You've not only had to grieve, you've had to figure out how life goes on. We had a wedding in there, and Colin, thank you for allowing me to sing at your wedding. I am incredibly grateful for that. But to watch a family gather and try and heal, to watch a community, a thank you to our honor guards, and a thank you, Representative, for honoring Gilbert, who was lost in this. For all of us, for me, first time being back in this space since I have had the privilege of serving in state government. It's the first time without Melissa, the Speaker. And I don't think it was any secret that we were partners, and she was a security blanket. But I think it's important in this space to say we were partners, but we had two very different jobs. She was very clear. She was the Speaker of the House. And when she meant that, she meant this entire building. And she often reminded me, each and every one of the people who sat in front of you have their own election certificate, and that matters. And I think for many of you who know, it was very rare to find Melissa Hortman having a harsh word about anybody. But she did it, and she reserved it for those times when we earned it, myself included. And after it happened, I stepped back, as we should, and tried to be more self-reflective. It was an incredible gift. for her to understand that. I don't think that got told. I think this institution, the sense of democracy, and for each and every one of you, if I would start going on a partisan rant, it was Speaker Hortman who would many times redirect that to, what is your goal, Governor, to get done here? Because it's certainly not the rant. It needs to be something else. And is this going to get us any closer to where you're trying to go? That's wisdom. That's experience. That's decency. That's leadership. And those things were all exhibited. And so trying to wrap my mind around this, because I hear people talk about it and they know that there was a shooting in Minnesota and elected officials and Senator Hoffman and a vet and his family. The public reached out. They understood what this was. They understood it was an assault on the democracy. But I think it's hard to express the loss, the sense of, I don't know if calling it the loss of innocence is right, but what was taken from all of us, and the sense of each and every one of you doing public service with your family. And to watch this family, to watch this body, to watch our state try and grapple and move through this, and other tragedies have come on top of it as we're living through. But I think it's important in this moment, and I'm grateful to this body, Leader Stevenson, to everybody for pausing, for making note of this, because again, the way you honor Melissa and Mark is how we conduct ourselves afterwards. It's one thing to be reflective to the past and to tell stories of the past. It's another to what did we learn from that. And I would just close with where it started when I got to know Melissa Hortman, got to know the speaker, and it was in 2019. And again, Minnesota's unique in this. Very few states have divided legislators. I think at the time there were two. I think it was us in Alaska maybe, I'm not sure. It's very rare, which meant we had to work together. That was the first session in 2019, and the last one was, of course, last year. And in both cases, we had divided legislators. We had very spirited discussions, and we ended with budgets that served the people of Minnesota. We didn't all get what we wanted, but we got compromises that got things done. And I think understanding that is that when I first got here, some of you know this, the speaker gave me the book, Getting to Yes. And those of you who are familiar with it, it's negotiating from a position that everybody needs to be part of it. Everybody needs to get there. And she gave this book to myself, to Senator Gazelka, and then she had it. And we read it, and we tried to do a little book club thing where we'd come back together and talk about it. But the book club was the actual session. And something that I have kept the whole time, and I think if you want to know who the heart and soul when it came to the legislator and the person that Melissa Hortman was, she wrote a very short note that accompanied this. And keep in mind, this is 2019, it's the first session. I came here after 12 years in Congress, so all of you knew that was a bad sign to start with. But she made clear about level setting what this place was and what our job was. And if you would just allow me, and I have not shared this with anyone, but I do think it's important. Dear Governor Walz, I'm looking forward to our work in the coming weeks to finalize a budget that gives Minnesotans the quality of public services they deserve. I also do believe that you, Senate Majority Leader Gazelka, and I can do this differently than it's been done in recent years in Minnesota and certainly in Washington, D.C. Governing is very different from campaigning. We'll take the fight to our opponents in 2020 elections. But in the meantime, we need to find win-wins together and the humanity in each other. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I look forward to our deliberations. Always, Melissa. And for me, it was the grounding of what it takes to get things done here, the grounding in the humanity that we all share, the grounding in that this is hard work. I think the grounding in getting to yes is a lot harder than simply saying no. It's a lot harder to get to yes than to dig in and believe you're right and the other side has nothing to offer. So as As I stand in front of you for the last legislative session, you can cheer for that if you do. So the last time, I think in that spirit of how we've done this, that I look to myself first to do better for the state of Minnesota, to do so in the spirit that Speaker Hortman understood this needed to be done, to stand firmly on your principles, but to see the humanity in one another. That is an incredible gift. I miss my friend every day. I miss the wisdom that she brought, the humor, the decency. And I just hope the work that we do here does her proud, because she cared so deeply about this institution that it's all of our responsibilities to continue to carry that out. So to the Hortman family, may you find peace in those incredible memories. May you know that Mark and Melissa made an impact on all of us that will last our lifetimes. Their memory's not going to die. Their memory is going to build a better Minnesota. And thank you for sharing those two beautiful people with us.
Good afternoon, dear friends, colleagues, members and staff, fellow leaders, fellow Americans. I watched again this morning the speech that Melissa gave on the day that she became the Speaker of the House. She shared her love for her family and her commitment to being the Speaker for the whole House, setting aside the blue and the red. And she spoke about her love for her work here in this beautiful chamber. Behind me is the rostrum from where she presided, leading the state as the most consequential speaker in Minnesota history. Melissa was a part of my entire tenure to now. She guided my big class of first-termers, not with cheering us on and affirmation, but with expectation. Constituents, constituents, constituents. Sound familiar? She knew if we didn't do our work, we would lose the opportunity to lead. And when we did lose, as we do, she had very little to say about it. Instead, she showed up in a conference room with a sharp pencil, gathered the numbers, and got to work. Classic Hortman. Our last conversation was at the end of the June special session. She teased me because the Senate ran late that very early morning, which, I was pretty mad about. But she waited for me. We talked about the session, about the hard and protected negotiation, and relief that a budget was on its way to the governor's desk. She was deeply committed to that goal, and she refused to fail. She never gave up. On June 14th, her bright light was extinguished, along with Mark and Gilbert. That day was the start of what has been the longest summer and the hardest winter. Children killed in a church, Minnesotans killed in the street. And we return here together, altered, some terrorized, fearful, but determined. That's what courage is for. And as I look around, as I look at all of us, what as I see is the courage to continue the work for the people of Minnesota. And as we are here together, we have a choice. Will we devolve into the familiar and increasingly dangerous partisan divide? Or will we do what I believe Melissa would want us to do, to lead with conviction and a plan for Minnesota? I believe the finest memorial to Melissa is to embody her spirit and her purpose. And as the pastor, William Sloane Coffin, would say, our world is too dangerous for anything but truth and too small for anything but love. May the road rise to meet you, Melissa, till we meet again. Thank you.
I'm honored to pay tribute to Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman today. Melissa was a leader whose legacy will outlast any single legislative session or political moment. Governor Walz, Leader Murphy, thank you for your words. Leader Stevenson, thank you for working together to bring us together in this way today. I want to thank Melissa's children, Colin and Sophie, for sharing your mother with our state for so many years. You are her most enduring legacy, and she was so proud to be your mother. I know the magnitude of the loss that we feel as her friends and colleagues is only a shadow of what your family is experiencing. Melissa was the only House Speaker I have had the honor to serve. She modeled the importance of leading with conviction and kindness. I'm blessed to have had the opportunity to learn those lessons both from her and with her. When I became Minority Leader in 2023, Melissa, as Speaker of the House, reached out to me right away and asked for a weekly meeting. She didn't have to do that. She didn't need my votes. She could have easily dismissed me as just another member of the minority party. And I think other leaders might have, but she didn't. Melissa's brand of leadership brought people in instead of shutting them out. She paved the way for a relationship where we never stopped listening to each other, even when we fundamentally disagreed. She was a real leader who could keep her caucus together despite the divisions at times. And I remember a time at the end of a particularly difficult session where I told her when this was all over and the legislature was far behind us, I wanted to sit down with her and find out how she did it. She kind of smiled in her way, gave me one tip, and the rest she didn't really share. But I have deep regret knowing that we'll never get that opportunity. She was a fearless leader. Through shared stories about our families, especially our children, through many laughs, a joint love for jalapeno Cheetos, and a need to consume more protein, and countless texts to see if we were going to be matching that day. We apparently shopped at the same places. But we built something that has become too far and too rare in politics. We built a relationship that was rooted in respect. Through tough negotiations and heated debates, Melissa and I could always look across the table and know that regardless of our differences, we both wanted what was going to be best for Minnesota. We didn't always see eye to eye, but we always saw each other. And that mattered deeply, and it still does. Our strongest disagreements never turned personal because we held on to mutual respect. Over the last year, Melissa and I worked hard to show that you can fiercely debate policy and process while still respecting the person on the other side of that debate. You can be principled and civil. You can deeply disagree and still be kind. Melissa never dismissed my perspective, and I never dismissed hers. So that made room for real conversations instead of talking points. And in our world today, that's something worth fighting for. I don't want to gloss over our disagreements, but I want to highlight what is truly possible. When we remember that public service is about people. Melissa understood that deeply, and she left behind a powerful example, not just for her caucus, but for every one of us. The last night that I saw Melissa, the night of our special session, and we did get done before the Senate, we each planned to go talk to the media about the work of the special session. She went first, and then she spoke with deep conviction and much emotion. As I walked out the front door of the chamber, I stopped and went back. I turned back to talk to Melissa. And what she said to me in that moment will stay with me forever. She said, "I like it so much better when we get along than when we fight." I like it so much better than when we get along than when we fight. Melissa's legacy will be remembered for what she accomplished, yes. But even more, her legacy will be remembered for how she accomplished it. With conviction, with kindness, fierce determination, and the unwavering belief that our institutions only function when we treat each other with dignity. So in our grief, I hope that moving forward, we can all learn to lead in a better way, rooted in respect, giving grace to those around us, a way that was modeled by Melissa Hortman.
There you had the last speaker there, the Speaker of the House, Lisa Demuth, Governor Tim Walz, among others, really eulogizing Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, who were assassinated last summer.
Yeah, powerful words from across both sides of the aisle, and that just goes to show the political force and the unifying force that Melissa Hortman was here in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I thought it was really powerful. Everybody wearing a green ribbon, paying tribute to Melissa Hortman's Irish roots. I was reading she was very proud of those roots, and you had he was either a senator or a representative with the last name Murphy, and I should have wrote down the name, but quoted an Irish blessing in her speech that she delivered for Melissa Hortman there. So. Senator Murphy, thank you, Paul. So yeah, that was really powerful, and hopefully the words of Lisa Demuth there of that Melissa Hortman, the last thing that she told her, "I'm more happy when we work together than when we don't." Hopefully the legislative branch here in Minnesota is able to really live out those words as they continue this session and hopefully get some work done, because they do have a lot of work to get done together.
Yeah, that seems to be the common denominator from pretty much everybody that we've heard today, is just trying to, let's take let's turn the temperature down a little bit. Let's all try to work together and help solve the problems for the people instead of trying to get political points off or, make a name for ourselves. Let's just unify, coalesce, and help the people of Minnesota.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So we'll have more on this legislative session and what ends up coming out of the Capitol building in the days to come.
I think we're trying to find someone for tomorrow's show to break down what we can expect from this legislative session from people in the know. We talked to Tim Blotz a little bit off the air today. He was saying he's not really expecting any hot button issues to be passed. It's not going to stop people from trying, but he's not expecting anything like crazy major. So if you're holding your breath for like sports gambling or anything like that, maybe take a breath.
Yeah, of course. So we'll see what ends up happening. Hopefully we will get somebody tomorrow to talk about exactly that. We're going to go to commercial. When we're going to come back, we're going to eulogize the late Reverend Jesse Jackson coming up after this break.
Yeah, passed away, I believe, early this morning, or at least it was announced early this morning.
Yep.
One of the great civil rights icons in American history, Jesse Jackson. We'll be talking about him and remembering his legacy on the afternoon shift right after this.
Jesse Jackson, who died earlier today at age 84, civil rights icon and a pioneer of so many things in the 20th century and 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of our kind of last direct ties, it feels like, to the late great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He was obviously there the day that he was assassinated, famously pictured in the picture in the immediate aftermath, and just a guy that's been dedicated his entire life to fighting for not only just oppressed people's struggles at large and oppressed people's rights at large, but specifically for Black people.
That's right. A big part of that was the Rainbow Push Coalition, a nonprofit organization that pursued racial justice, social justice issues. Also, two-time Democratic presidential candidate. Had the highest finished ever of any Black American in 1984 for either party. He finished third in that primary, then ran again in 1988, finished second. So got really close, and like we were talking about earlier, really paved the way for somebody like President Obama.
He really did, and he was the first Black person to launch a nationwide presidential bid. Obviously, there's Shirley Chisholm. She was the first Black person to run for president, I believe, in 1972, but she wasn't really able to get on the ballot for a lot of states there. So Jesse Jackson was able, I believe, to get on all of the ballots. But the thing that, one of the ways that he directly, obviously, being the first one of the first prominent Black civil rights figures and one of the first prominent Black people in general to run for president, obviously that paves the way for a guy like Barack Obama, right? But literally, in a more direct sense, one of the key facets of his campaign was he was frequently criticizing the Democratic Party for how you earn delegates. Some places required you to receive 20 to 30% of the vote, and some places had these winner-take-all rules. He ended up with 1,000 delegates, but he was shut out from a few states because of these winner-take-all rules. The Democratic Party ended up changing those rules after Jesse Jackson's kind of surprising performance in his 1988 campaign, and because of them changing that rule and changing these winner-take-all rules, Barack Obama was able to secure the amount of delegates, even in states that he lost, because there wasn't these winner-take-all rules. So he was able to secure the delegates that he needed to become the nominee for the Democratic Party, and obviously the rest is history after that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure it was really powerful too for Jesse Jackson to have Barack Obama be from the city of Chicago and be from the state of Illinois, which was a state that Jesse Jackson called home. And like I was saying earlier, one of my most vivid memories of Jesse Jackson was the night that election night when President Obama was elected, and he was giving a speech in Grant Park in Chicago, and Jesse Jackson was put on camera, and he did not speak. He was just in the crowd, just like a lot of other people, and had a tear rolling down his face. And so to see a Black man win the presidency, and a Black man from Chicago on top of that, I'm sure had to be really special for him.
For sure. I mean, this is a guy that grew up in, he was born in 1941 in South Carolina. He probably never thought that we'd ever come so far that we would be able to have a Black president. And obviously, we're not living in this racial harmony society that a lot of people build it up to be after Barack Obama was elected. But for a guy like Jesse Jackson that has seen the things that he's seen, that's seen all the political violence, almost all of his peers gunned down or lost in some type of way far too soon. And then for him to see a Black president, and one that he helped pave the way for. And I know, I think Jesse Jackson had some, public criticisms for Barack Obama, but at the end of the day, I think he kind of just pushed it all aside because he recognized the importance and the significance of the moment. And again, this is a guy that's been organizing since he was a kid, man, organizing student groups and literally marching, gathering up support for Martin Luther King, and then literally marching with Dr. Martin Luther King and help organizing a lot of these protests and a lot of these actions that got a lot of work done in the civil rights era. And then again, as we discussed, for pretty much after Dr. Martin Luther King passed, he kind of was the face of the civil rights movement here in America. We joked about it earlier, but anytime anybody said anything, even remotely disrespectful to Black people, it was Jesse Jackson. It was like you said Jesse Jackson's name 5 times in a mirror, and Jesse Jackson was going to show up. Him and Al Sharpton were there every single time and they were ready to give a speech. They're ready to speak out and show support for whoever had been, disrespected or aggrieved. And it almost to the point that it became a bit, but that's how ubiquitous he was. That's how almost omnipresent that he was. He spent every waking second of his life pretty much dedicated to helping others and helping try to achieve that racial justice.
Yeah, some of those marches you talk about, the 1965 Selma to Montgomery marches, these were just like iconic history moments. We talk about Bloody Sunday and the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and he was there. He was part of all of those events. You talk about him organizing during his young days.
Yeah,
I didn't know that I was reading today, he had a football scholarship to the University of Illinois.
How about that?
Wasn't the first black player to ever go to Illinois, but actually left because he felt like he wasn't getting a fair shake. And went to the HBCU, North Carolina A&T, where that's where he really kind of got his start organizing and with student groups and everything.
Sure.
And I didn't know that he had a football scholarship to Illinois. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I read that he was told that black people couldn't play quarterback. So he dipped out to North Carolina A&T, and then he became the first string quarterback, an honor student, in sociology and economics, and the student body president, all while he was organizing all these different actions and enduring the things that he had to deal with in that time in America. So I just cannot believe the mental fortitude it took to be Jesse Jackson, and it took to continue to be Jesse Jackson after literally witnessing Martin Luther King get assassinated right before his very eyes, to pick himself up off the ground and to take up that mantle, to take up that torch and kind of just be the face of the civil rights movement along with Al Sharpton. And for decades, it felt like only within the last 10 years or so as his health started to fail him a little bit for black people here in America.
Yeah, if you've ever seen the Ken Burns documentary of baseball, there's a portion in there with Jackie Robinson's funeral. Jesse Jackson eulogized Jackie Robinson at his funeral. Go watch it, folks out there. It's really, the whole documentary is great, but that particular moment is really, really great too. There was a poem, again, I was not aware of this before, but it's called "I Am Somebody."
Yeah.
And Jesse Jackson, he didn't write it, but it's often credited to him, and he quoted it a lot. Just a brief line from it. I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be young, but I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody. A poem that really spoke to a lot of people and delivered it on Sesame Street.
Yeah, no,
which
cool.
I thought was so interesting.
That's really cool. And we forget how much of a breeding ground for this type of thought that kids shows were, like Sesame Street, like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, another incredible documentary. If you could see the documentary about Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood,
very good.
But watch the clip. It's on. It went viral on social media. Jesse Jackson looking about his 70s as you could get, with a big old medallion, big old afro. But it is very empowering for it being a segment on a kids show. It was incredibly empowering to watch. And again, just a guy that felt like he was always going to be there. If something ever happened to me, I just felt like Jesse Jackson's going to pop up and he's going to have my back. It was a comfort growing up to know that there was a person like Jesse Jackson that existed that would always have your back.
Absolutely. So rest in peace, Jesse Jackson. Our condolences to his family and everybody.
And lived a long, great life. It's still tragic when we lose an icon like this, but 84, and you have to think of all the different peers that he lost, and he was walking when he was running for president. He had the bulletproof vest on.
Yes.
Like they didn't have the same type of protections that they have for politicians now. He's walking around with a bulletproof vest on. I just can't imagine